Presence open you up to God's glory. It's the gateway, it's the pathway to the glory of God. The glory of God is different from his presence. There are people that are operating from the realm of God's presence. And there are people that are operating from the realm of God's glory. At the early stage of the ministry of Moses, what he encountered was the altar of his presence. And the Lord spoke to him and said, take off your shoe. The ground you stand is holy. And the holiness of God is the presence of God. God's presence is the holiness of God. What makes God holy is his presence. The aspect of God that is holy is his presence. So that presence is called the holiness of God. Moses walked with that altar for many years. But a time came in the life of Moses that he needed to take his work for God to the next level, to the next phase. And the presence of God was not strong enough. He needed a higher corporatia. And then he cried out to the Lord and he said, if I have found grace in your sight, show me your glory. The man was no longer interested in God's presence. He encountered that at the early stage of his ministry. And God said, when they get to my glory, it's expensive. Mortal man can't see it. If you see it, you die. Hey, but God didn't. He said, mortal man can't. If you see it, that is the sovereignness of God. Hey, that is what? The sovereignness of God. The covering of God is not his presence. The covering of God is his glory. A man's presence can't cover him. I've never seen any man that is covered with his presence. I've never seen any man that is what? Covered with his presence. God used his presence to announce his arrival. The presence of God is what makes us to know. It brings us into the consciousness of God being in a particular place. So when you see God's presence, you know God is around. Do you understand it? When you see God what? Presence. When you encounter his presence, you know that God is around. So what did God do with his presence? His presence to announce his arrival. But God is not in his presence. You see what I brought you now, the meat is strong. It's not for children. The meat is what? Is strong. It's not for children. God used his presence to announce his arrival. But God is not in his presence. You see that bush that was on fire, God was not in that bush. that bush that was on fire, it was something that set the bush on fire. What set the bush on fire was the presence of God that came upon the bush. Anything the presence of God came on, rests on, comes on, that thing has no choice than to burn. If the presence of God comes on this chair must burn. The only reason why the bush burned was because of something came upon the bush. And that thing that came upon the bush was the presence of God. But God was not in the bush. God was not in the bush. The person that Moses saw was not God, was the agent of his presence. Jesus came and said to us, no man has ever seen God. No man has ever what? Has ever seen God apart from him that came from God. He said the only man that can give you the description of God is the man that came from God. He said forget about what Moses said. Say that thing that Moses said is not correct because Moses didn't see God. He said don't walk with that thing that Moses said. He said it's not correct. That was why he told the people, your fathers ate manna in the wilderness and they died. He said, but this is the true bread that comes from heaven. And until you eat this bread, you have no life in you. He said this bread is different from the one that your father ate. This was the bread that David was looking for. That made David to go to the temple, to the very holiest of holies. There was a desire for this bread. It was not an ordinary bread. That But even in the New Testament, Jesus had to make a reference to what David did. David was supposed to have died because it was not yet time for the earthly and the physical manifestation of that bread. It was not yet time for mortal man to partake from that communion. And after that encounter, when David ate that bread, his eyes opened. The next thing David said, and the Lord said unto my Lord, sit down at my right hand side. Before David died, David became the Lord by virtue of the bread that he ate. Before he died, he became what? A Lord by virtue of the bread that he ate. And that was why God himself couldn't kill him. So the first, the first realm, the first altar was the altar of his presence. Was the altar of his presence. It's just like, it's like, let us assume, for example, I have a what do I call it now? A van, and that van has a siren on top. And I'm coming to church. And near the church, the driver decided to on it, to turn the siren on. Do you understand it now? It make noise. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Is that true? It make what? It make noise. Now, the moment you started hearing that noise, what comes into your mind? Papa has arrived. So that siren, that noise, is an announcement of my arrival. I am not in that siren. Am I in that siren? Am I in that noise? I'm not in that noise. That noise is an announcement of my arrival. So God used his presence to announce his arrival. How